Today we're going to talk about Angelina Jolie, as requested by Melissa. Hey Melissa. But first, for the energetic gift today, we're going to do a Mars wash for a couple of reasons. Right now Mars is in Aries. Now normally Mars spends 6 weeks in any given sign. But this year it's going to spend 6 months in Aries right now, and it's squaring the Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter conjunction. So there's a lot of tension in the air around Mars. Mars is our assertion. Mars is anger. It's our drive out into the world. It's our force. So the purpose of a Mars energetic wash is to help balance that in yourself in case you're having issues with anger. It's also one of the highlighted areas of Angelina Jolie's chart. So if you would like to receive the Mars energy, just be open to it. If not, just say no thanks. And we'll get started with Angelina's chart. Okay. So Angelina Jolie, her rising sign, and that's on the far left hand, is 28 degrees of Cancer. Cancer is nurturing energy. It rules the mother. So the type of energy someone would put out with a Cancer rising is nurturing energy. In her case, it's the feminine, and in her case it has the feminine planet Venus directly on it. Now, Venus on the ascendant or in the first house gives physical beauty. Hers is directly on the ascendant, and she's really good looking. She's really beautiful. So, let's see. That Venus is squared by Uranus, so it's that kind of like, it's almost shocking, I think. If you meet her in person, you're almost stunned by her beauty. Uranus is things that come out of the blue, right? That just, we weren't expecting. So she has that kind of energy tied to her first house. Venus is also the way that we love and the way that we experience love. And with Uranus challenging it, there's a light switch effect. Like, I think she falls in love quickly and maybe out of love quickly. Yeah, kind of out of the blue. And she has that effect on other people as well. So the rising sign or ascendant is, of course, our personality, what we project out into the world, but also rules health because it rules the physical body. The actual house for health is the 6th, but we look at the first house because it is the physical body, and we look at the 6th house of health. So, you know, what's on the cusp of it, what planets are involved, those kind of things. She has Venus in Cancer, right on the ascendant, and Cancer rules the breast and the reproductive organs, and she, in 2013, had her breast removed, and that she followed that by having her fallopian tubes and ovaries removed to prevent cancer, because she had a family history of that, which is the moon. You know, family history is associated with the moon, and the moon rules Cancer. So the ruler of her chart, the ruler of her Venus, is the moon. She did what she needed to do to prevent cancer because she had the mutated gene. Would she have developed cancer? I think so. And the reason that I say that is because in her chart, Pluto is opposed the moon, and Uranus squares that Venus in Cancer. So, good move on her part. At the time that she had the surgery, Uranus, which rules her 8th house because there's Aquarius on the cusp of it, Uranus was on her moon and Mars up in the 9th house. The 8th house is the house of surgery, among other things. So the ruler of the house of surgery was sitting on her moon, Mars. Mars rules surgery as well because it rules sharp instruments. So that's what was going on with that. And Pluto was squaring the Mars moon. And Pluto is transformation, right? And Mars in transit was going through that 8th house of surgery when she had the surgery. So, good move. So the ruler of the ascendant then, and the ruler of the chart, becomes the moon in Aries in the 9th house, conjunct or sitting next to Mars. So she's a warrior. The moon in Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, okay? So the moon in Aries, like the baby of the zodiac. Me first, maybe tendency towards impatience, right? But Aries energy is innovative, adventurous, goes out and gets things done, is a warrior. Mars and Aries rule war. So there's this need for her, you know, the moon is your emotional needs, what you need to feel okay. And the need for her is to be independent, to go out and do what she wants to do in a warrior-like way. And her moon is in the 9th house, which rules, among other things, foreign countries. So she's a goodwill ambassador. She's done all kinds of humanitarian things for refugees, for women's rights, for human rights. And that's a big part of who she is and what she needs to feel okay. The 2nd house is our values, traditionally money, our sense of self-worth, those things. It has Leo on the cusp of it, and the ruler is the sun in the 11th in Gemini. You know, the sun in Gemini, I need to communicate. The 11th house, the broader public. In a traditional astrology wheel, the house that would be, that the 11th represents the sign, Aquarius, right? So there's a humanitarian thing happening there. Aquarius, 11th house issues, humanitarianism, freedom, invention, things like that. So her sun in Gemini in the 11th suggests this humanitarian streak. So coupled with her 9th house, humanitarian aid to foreign countries comes into play. And it improves her sense of self-worth, or her feeling, you know, it matches with her values, 2nd house, right? The 3rd house is siblings, elementary school, short journeys, communication overall. Pluto is there, and Pluto transforms wherever it is. It's fairly intense. So transforming the way she thinks or communicates over time would be a natural expression of that. And it suggests an intense relationship with siblings. Let's see. The 4th house is home, like the childhood home. She has Venus on the cusp of it, or Libra, and it's ruled by Venus, and Venus is on the ascendant. This makes home very personal for her. You know, very important and very personal. With Uranus in the 4th house, she might have moved a lot as a child, or she might have different kinds of houses. You know, eclectic would be a word that I would use. That kind of thing. Or, you know, some kind of upset and changes in childhood that weren't anticipated. Uranus. Right? The 5th house is traditionally the house of children, but it's anything we create, anything that comes from us. It has Scorpio on the cusp of it. The ruler is Pluto. Having children or creating something then completely transforms us at that point. She comes in as a teacher to her children with Pluto in the 3rd house of education, right? The North Node is in the 5th house, Neptune's in the 5th house, and Neptune is really expansive. On the higher levels of Neptune, the higher expression of Neptune is unconditional love, right? And this need to express in fifth house ways. That Neptune is making an exact trine or positive aspect to her Mars, or her force drive out into the world, and is also making a trine positive aspect to her moon. Moon trine Neptune, really empathic, psychic. But tied to her fifth house, you know, this emotional need to have children, right? And coming out of the ninth house, potentially foreign children. She's running about half and half, I think, on her children, foreign adoptions and natural born. But it's the need to give humanitarian aid for her. Her north node, so the nodes are an axis, right? You have the north node and the south node. The south node's where you came from, a potential idea of past lives and things like that. The north node is what you're supposed to grow into in this life, like what your kind of your mission is. Her north node is in Sagittarius, foreign countries, right? In the fifth house, children. You know, and Sagittarius anyway is the banner carrier, is the person who joins the protest, or, you know, tries to make life better. And so that's her north node, and it's in the fifth house of children. So fighting for their rights makes a lot of sense. The sixth house is service, and it's also work, small animals, things like that. Sagittarius is on the cusp, so it is ruled by Jupiter. Oh, it's also the house health, sorry. It's ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is on her midheaven, like exactly on her midheaven. Right, and Jupiter is expansive and lucky, and she had a pretty good career so far. But yeah, the suggestion here with the ruler of the sixth on the midheaven, you know, which is how the public sees us, where we are in public view, and it's expansive. It may become later on like what she's most known for is the service that she's done. Oh, and just to trip back into the fifth a minute, it's hard because a regular chart is like 2 hours, and I'm trying to do this in half an hour. So, but to trip back into the fifth house rules the stage, and Neptune, which is in the fifth, that rules movies, right? And that's opposed her sun. So it's a big part of who she is, the ability to put on a facade. Be glamorous, right? That Neptune trines Mars, and that's one of the ways that you would describe that. But again, she's really psychic with Sun opposite Neptune. But anyway, that's in the fifth, so that's a natural expression of who she is, the actress, right? Jupiter on the cusp of the seventh. Sagittarius on the cusp of the seventh, ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter's in Aries. She might have a tendency towards headaches because Aries rules the head. And Jupiter by itself rules the liver. Right? So she might have sugar issues or something like that later on, potentially. The seventh house is partnerships, traditionally called the house of marriage, right? The type of partner that you look for. So you look at what's the ruler of that house, and she has Capricorn on the cusp of it. The ruler is Saturn in the 12th of the subconscious. So Saturn is structure, it is stability. As a person, it's someone older, someone established. She would be drawn to established type men or older men potentially. But that Saturn's in her 12th house. So when she's actually formally married, which is a 7th house thing, it triggers some of her subconscious fears and discomfort. So that may be what she's run into when she's actually married. Like love affairs and things are found in the 5th. But the 7th is when I actually like officially marry you. And then you start to trigger all my subconscious fears. Uh-oh. In a woman's chart, you would look at the Sun and Mars for the type of men that she's attracted to. So communicative men and driven men with the Mars and Aries, right? The 8th house, sex, death, taxes, and as I already mentioned, things like surgery. The 8th house is the natural Scorpio house, but she has Aquarius on the cusp of it, which is ruled by Uranus in the 4th. She's a freak. No. Yeah. But, you know, Uranus tied to the 8th house is the willingness to try something different. Uranus is the rebel. So she might be an experimenter, right? The 9th house is higher education. It is foreign countries, the law, journalism, things like that. Her moon and Mars are there. I think the way that she's expressing, you know, I looked at a quick bio. I've never looked at her chart before. The way that she's expressing it is in her drive towards helping out in foreign countries, I believe. So her moon's there, so emotionally she's very driven to do it. Mars is in Aries in its own sign, right? Jupiter on the midheaven we talked about. Chiron is the wounded healer placement, and in her chart it is in the 10th house of her public persona. And so I think she does what she does because she has a wound around what's happening in humanity or in the, you know, out in the public, right? And the 10th house is her career more broadly, and Jupiter's right on the cusp of it, you know. And she commands a lot of money for her pictures. The 11th house is the wider public. It's where her south node is. Suggesting, south node in Gemini, suggesting that she was a speaker, like a public speaker, in a past life potentially, and that she benefited from that because the Arabic part, the part of fortune, is sitting next to the south node. And in this life, she's being asked to expand that into the 5th house and into Sagittarius things, into foreign countries, and that's where she'll find her benefit. Her sun is there, her Mercury is there, so they have this like overwash of Aquarian type energy or humanitarian type energy. You know, people with an 11 house focus, they need a cause to work towards, and she's working towards a cause. Right? Gemini's on the cusp of the 12th. The 12th is the subconscious, the other side of the veil. It's ruled by Mercury in the 11th. She may have the ability to speak to spirits, very possible. Or she may struggle to connect, actually, because she's got Saturn in the 12th. And Saturn in the 12th, anything in the 12th is something we have to deal with. It can be anxiety, this nagging feeling of guilt. You don't really know why. So Saturn is structure, right? And it's form. And the 12th house is nebulous. And, you know, the best use of something like Saturn in the 12th would be to take your ideas and your imagination and your visions and bring them into form. You know, as an artist or in some other way or through deep spiritual practice, bring it into form. So that would be my advice to Angelina Jolie. I don't know if I mentioned this video. I did on request for Melissa. So there you go, girl. I want to talk about her aspects a little bit. Sun opposing Neptune. So the Sun is the core of who you are. Her Sun's in the 11th house, opposing Neptune in the 5th. Sun opposing Neptune, core who you are, but also like your father. Opposing Neptune can be kind of not, you know, like the father's not really there, or, you know, or has a drug or alcohol problem. And so like the way that develops in the developing person, right, is maybe a tendency towards alcohol or drug abuse until one grows into oneself, basically, learns what you need. It can be these lower forms of expression, drugs, alcohol, things like that. And then as a maturing individual with the Sun opposed Neptune, that is psychic ability, is intuitive ability, is the ability to tap into other dimensions, things like that. Her Neptune is also trine her moon, so it's making aspects to both her lights, right? So talk about that. The moon Mars is opposed Pluto. Mars opposed Pluto can be violence unless one owns your power, right? You have an aspect like that, Mars opposed Pluto. Whatever you don't own in your chart, you draw from the outside. So she needs to own her Mars in Aries, her goddess energy, her Vesta energy, if you will. She needs to be that, right? Moon sits next to it. And channel it into something constructive and positive. So this work that she does, this 9th house work she does in foreign countries is really, really good for her. And it's empowering for her. The moon is also opposed Pluto, suggesting an intense relationship with the mother, and also powerful emotional energy. Those aspects, moon Pluto, or moon Mars opposed Pluto, that's that, attraction that she has for blood, and I think she studied embalming at one point. Those are very Plutonian things, right? So, getting my tattoos. She was cutting for a while, I think. That's part of that intense thing. When she didn't know what to do with her emotions, that's what she did. I think the change really came for her when she adopted her first child. And it stabilized her somehow and allowed her to funnel that moon nurturing energy into a child instead of self-harm, right? Her moon also squares Saturn in the 12th. The suggestion there is there's some kind of loss experienced through the mother. So a need to be responsible as a mother comes into play. And yeah. Let's see if there's something else I want to say about her aspects. Saturn squares Mars. That can be like driving with one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas. So there may be some tendency sometimes to change her mind about things because she's working on that. Moon trining Neptune. That's pretty classic empath stuff. Jupiter conjunct Mars, that's a lot of personal energy. And Mars and Jupiter are both making positive aspects to the Sun. She just has so much energy and so much power. And I think that's maybe what I'm going to say for now. Thank you, Melissa, for this suggestion. I haven't looked at her chart. It's pretty fascinating. If there's somebody you'd like me to take a look at their chart, just let me know in the comments, or you can email me. Like, subscribe, share. Have a great day.